Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Michael and Joe. We're the other guys. We are honored and extremely fortunate to be joined by a legend, a titan in the industry from AdventHealth, none other than Mr. Mitch Montgomery. Welcome, Rich, to the other guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a little bit of time. Your calendar is way more crowded than Joe and I. We always have time for anybody that wants to come on the other guys. Thanks for spending some time with us. Anybody that joins in or tunes in, if you don't know Rich Montgomery, you're going to get a good chance to know Rich over the next maybe 45 minutes to an hour. But you need to look him up. This man has done it all. He's made a lot of had a lot of success in the industry, has a lot of connections and a vast network in the pharmacy world. So without further ado, hey Rich, real quick, why don't you tell us a little bit about? Well, let's start here. Tell us a little bit about how you got down to Orlando, Florida. You're a Pittsburgh guy, and you've been down in Orlando for quite some time. So how did that all come together?
Yeah, I think I hit 40 years in Orlando this year. One morning, working at UPMC, walked up the hill. It was 2 below 0, wind chill took it to 10 below. And I said, okay, this is crazy. I have an uncle and a cousin living in Orlando. Let me go check it out and see what I can do down there. And I ventured down to Orlando, took a job with a company called Eckerd Drug, which is a retail pharmacy here in the Southeast, which is no longer in existence. I think it got bought out by actually by J.C. Penney, believe it or not, I think, and then sold off eventually to CVS Pharmacy. So spent about 6 years in the retail space and then hopped back into the hospital setting. Had worked at UPMC as a student, so I was pretty familiar with the hospital space and felt a little bit more comfortable there. So took the jump back in, and as of February this year, it'll be 34 years at AdventHealth.
What is Advent? Do they do anything to celebrate that kind of longevity? You don't see that these days, and it's
Yeah, on the 5 year intervals, they do. I mean, I think once you hit not the first five, but 10, 15, 20 going out, they have a banquet and they honor and you get to shake hands with the CEO and you get a catalog and get to pick some product out that you may or may not want and they'll send it to you. So, but yeah, you get acknowledged with that. I mean, I think we just had a gentleman here retired Friday, 50 years with the company. Started in the kitchen as a teenager, I think, or somewhere as a teenager, and yeah, just rang the bell on Friday, 50 years.
that's a
Yeah.
good organization. A lot of
Yes.
organizations can't keep people that long, so I think it speaks a lot to
Yeah.
the folks that you work with and work for down there. I would suggest any Advent folks listening, Rich could use a Rolex on that 30 years if you want to start shopping or budgeting
They
down.
used to give watches, but they don't do that anymore. So I don't know. I don't know. My wife got one and it quit working, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah.
All right, Rich, turn the calendar. 26, 2025 is behind us. What are some of the things you've got to work on from a pharmacy perspective? One or two big projects you're thinking about
Yeah,
initiatives.
we've got a couple software implementations that are going on right now. We signed on with Plenful 340B software, and also we just signed with Latent, the prior auth platform. So that'll be a big rollout. And then we're also in the process of growing our specialty pharmacy business. And we've got a more intentional focus on that right now. We've got some folks in place that just joined the team. So probably those are the big rock projects going forward for us.
Awesome. Congrats to two good organizations doing some big work in the space, coming on strong over the last 18, 24 months. Everybody talks about AI, and they seem to have that message and technology moving there. So that'll be fun to watch and expect. It kind of leads me, I want to ask you about the central fill operation a second.
Yes.
We're kind of moving ahead a little bit, but you keep hearing about all this stuff in AI, and this is not a show about pharmacy for the most part. But when you started 30 years ago, and even 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was it like, oh, I want to be talking about artificial intelligence one day? Did you even think
I
about
don't even
these?
think they existed, Michael. I mean, intelligence may be artificial. I don't know, but yeah, it's just pretty amazing how far it's come, good and bad. Because there's misinformation and hallucinations and all those new terms that we got to get used to. But it's really kind of helped, quick lookups and things, especially in the pharmacy healthcare space. You just got to make sure what you're reading makes a lot of sense. So yeah.
Well, hey, on that front. going back a little bit. You've been able to make sense of a lot of things and have kind of been a pioneer, so to speak, on a couple of things within pharmacy. I've heard you tell this story a little bit, but as we kind of talk to some folks around the community, you were instrumental in bringing the central fill operation
Yeah.
onto AdventHealth. And that was, you did that long before you talk about AI.
2012.
Yeah, AI wasn't a term. I don't think people were talking about centralization back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah, we talked about it, and I had this thought, and I said, okay, let's look and see if we can do this. So I was talking with one of our materials guys, gentleman by the name of Dick Starnes, who has since passed and didn't actually get to see it come into fruition. And I said, well, Dick, what if could we not? Why are we have all this, we've got hospitals at a 25-mile radius. They're pretty close by. How come we're all buying the same stuff, but we can't share any of it? And he goes, well, we do this with materials. So we had a really good conversation about it. And I said, well, let's see if we can do this. So it was a little bit of serendipity. I got called in front of the CFO and the CEO, and I'm trying to think which other O's were in the room. And they said, hey, what are we going to do for our drug budget? It seems to be keep going up, and how are we going to, what do we got any solutions? And I said, well, actually, I got an idea. So I got a piece of notebook paper, and I'm sitting in front of the C-suite, and I said, well, if we had a central distribution hub, we could do package sharing, we could do like our cabinet refills, and we could cut down on the duplication of inventory that we have spread across, I think it was 8 campuses at the time. I said, it makes a lot of sense. And the CFO is looking at the CEO, and he said, well, yeah, it would make sense. So I got the question, well, why aren't you doing it? And I said, well, that's because you wouldn't give me $5.4 million to build it. And the CEO at the time, Brian Paradis, looked at, gosh, I can't remember his name, and said, well, give him the money. So that started it. So then we drove around Orlando looking at warehouses, and finally found one. And the gentleman that was the owner of the plaza where we are, at the time, he was the owner, had I believe it was a kidney transplant at Florida Hospital. So we actually came in at well below market in our square footage space and just started putting it together, and we built it. And we had a guy, Peter Kulash, who was a NASA PhD. I think he was a PhD then, might have been a master's. Had worked at NASA, but got laid off when they scuttled the shuttle program. So he comes over, and he was my PM, and he just engineered the whole thing and probably over engineered it. I mean, we had a clean room that was ISO 3. We had all the bells and whistles. It was really, and I'll never forget when Lars Hohmann, who was our CEO for the whole company, came in, and like we put him in a bunny suit and let him go in the clean room, and he's like, I can actually breathe in here. It's like, he said, well, you're probably breathing the cleanest air in Orlando right now. So he was pretty happy about that. And then Peter steps up and goes, well, I built one of these clean rooms, the iridium seal that they put on the face mask for the astronauts. That was my project. And we couldn't, and he's like, and Lars, I'll never forget, he looked at him and goes, you lost me at iridium seal. So that was the that was the genesis of that. And it took a while. We were a new thing. So the next step we had to do in the state of Florida, they wanted us to get a wholesaler license. And I was like, well, we're not a wholesaler, because if we do, that's going to screw up our pharmacy contracts. So I got a consortium of Shands, University of Florida Shands, Baycare, and HCA grouped together, started getting some input from their legal, our legal, and said, let's go to the board and create a new permit under common ownership, because at that time DSCSA had just been passed for the Drug Safety Security Act that said it's our property when it stops at our front door. Why do I need a wholesaler license to share it? So we went round and round. DPR wasn't happy with me, and so we got in front of the legislature. We had a couple friendly senators, and we got the legislation passed. So it was the institutional 3 permit that allowed us to share under common ownership. So between the build and that license, that got things kick-started, and the evolution of central pharmacies. So I kind of look back, and I see these people headline, oh, University of Maryland building a central pharmacy, or you know Baptist Louisville building a central pharmacy. Like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Been there, done that.
Rich, when you talk about a NASA person being your project manager, I don't
Yeah.
know ISO 3. I don't know. It's better than 2, I would imagine. But where you missed an opportunity was the magic down there probably could have came down there and breathed a little of that clean air, a little hyperbaric chamber before these things became popular.
Yeah, that's true.
Easy to charge them a couple of mil and pay for that thing, no problem.
Well, interestingly enough, during COVID, when everything shut down and they got, they had to go in their bubble down at Disney, we actually used the Magic's arena to stockpile product. So we had gowns and gloves and hand sanitizer and IV fluids on the floor of the arena. They had a gentleman who he had worked for us and then he had retired, ex-military, came in and managed the whole depot supply thing. And it was, yeah, it was pretty cool the way we partnered up with them. So no free tickets, but we got to use the arena space, which you don't realize how big that place is until you're kind of in there, and there's not a floor and a hoop and all the other stuff. So yeah, yeah,
One last follow-up question on this front. You
yeah,
asked for 5.4 million.
yeah,
CFO looking at the CEO, you're like, CEO says, give it to this guy.
yeah.
How easy after that and the success that you've had has it been to go back and say, hey, I need a couple million here. I want to do this project. Is it
I
transitive?
haven't had to do that, so I guess I'm gonna keep my batting average at 1,000 or
Okay.
yeah, whatever. And yeah, it was and then we had a little tug because we had a few directors at the time who thought, oh, I'm gonna lose control and it's too much overhead and blah blah blah. But eventually we got it, and I think it's working pretty well right now. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, hat tip to you on that. I think it's a great story.
yeah.
It's always fun to hear.
I know. Somebody asked me if I still had the notebook paper that I wrote the thing on. I should have like framed it and hung it up in the. I said no, I'm not sure where it is. I probably could recreate it, but that wouldn't be fair.
Love it.
All great ideas are formed on a napkin, Rich. All right,
Yeah.
we're gonna move a little bit.
Okay.
You've had a great run. You've been doing your thing for a long time. As we said in the opening, one of the most respected members in the pharmacy network that I've come across. And I'm sure with this experience, I've learned and heard you're a staunch negotiator. So my question is, what is the two-part question?
Okay.
Craziest negotiation you've ever been a part of? And then has there ever been a negotiation you've been a part of in these 30 plus years where you kind of look back and you're like, that vendor may have got it.
Not. I mean, we went round and round with software. I mean, I had a good negotiation, and I'm going to say Plentiful kind of came in at some really high price, and I don't know if it was my body language or just my like nah attitude. So I think that was a pretty successful negotiation. I don't know. There was a company called Quicksort that I had to deal with. It was a tough negotiation, but I think we got to an endpoint when we got a ROI guarantee. I think that was a pretty good negotiation. I'm trying to think one that didn't go well. Yeah, probably a couple of pharmacy vendors that I could probably say we could have done better. The problem is when you get into bundled contracts, and I sit in supply chain, so there was a vendor who I'm not going to call out, but they bundled some drugs in with the supply chain, and we got hit with a price increase because it was tied into a rebate for the med surge guys. So that one was probably I guess we kind of dropped the ball on that one. But for the most part, most people were pretty fair as long as you play nice and sit at the table and go back and forth.
So it sounds like when you're in these negotiations, the virtual machine now makes it a little bit different. But I'm sure
Yeah.
when there's no virtual component, I would imagine I could see Rich kind of sitting. You're kind of a non-verbal cue guy, right? You're not giving a lot verbally, just kind of sitting there listening, very stoic. Is that your tactic?
That can be my MO. It depends on what's going on. Because one of the things when you negotiate, you kind of pick up on the cues from the person you're negotiating with. So if I'm negotiating with Mike and he's all over the place, well, then I would probably be as energetic and as him. Then I'm talking to Matt, and he's like, "Okay, let's talk about this." Then you kind of take your cue from what's going on in the room. And you're right; it's a little trickier with the Zooms and Teams meetings and those things because it's harder to see kind of read in the room, but you kind of pick up on it.
All right, for the other guys, because this was a show built for the other guys. If you're
Yeah.
talking to Rich Montgomery, watch your body language, match his, and you're gonna fail if you have energy and you're moving around. Don't do that.
I didn't say you're going to fail. You just got to pick up on the cue that it's the mirroring. It's a technique. So, and then you got to have your data. You got to go in. You got to know your price points, and you got to know what's your walk away. What's your number. So
Love it. All right, I'm gonna let Joe step in for a couple of these. He's got some things to bounce off of.
okay,
Yeah, make sure your numbers are right before you step into a negotiation with Rich, or he's just gonna take you down. But Rich, you've
yes,
been doing this. You've been doing this for a minute, about 34 minutes, it sounds like. Seen lots of change, different initiatives, legislation, etc. A lot going on recently as well. Do you think the pharmacy is progressing in the right direction, or is it being held back, or is there a sense of we need some good old day type things to return to pharmacy?
I think we are. And yesterday, by the way, was National Pharmacist Day. So just in case folks didn't know that, I think it depends on where you sit because I feel my aunt, I will say, kind of got me into pharmacy. She was an independent pharmacy owner, and so I have a kind of a soft spot for those guys. She had 3 or 4 stores in North Central PA, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth with the PBMs and some of the things that are going on. When you've got 1 out of 3 retail pharmacies are closing, over the last couple of years, I have some concerns there. Sitting on where I sit, I think some of the technology and some of the clinical stuff that's going on and allowing us to practice more at the top of our license, I think that's good. But then we've got I think we're getting a little bit overregulated. We're starting to get into that tug of war with manufacturers, in the 3B space and some of the stuff that's going on there. Um, I'm not going to get too political, but some of the stuff coming out of the CDC right now is just crazy. So I don't know. There was a great song that I could probably play right now called "Ball of Confusion" from the Temptations. I think that's kind of where we are right now. And Joe, you probably don't remember that. Mike knows exactly what I'm singing
Yeah,
too.
I'm typing into Spotify right now what that is and trying to see if there's any resemblance.
Motown, "Ball of Confusion."
Well, Rich, that's a great answer, and obviously, it's a question that we're asking you because you always seem to have an opinion on this. You got a good pulse on what's going on, but shifting a little bit here into let's talk about conferences. And we see each other at a lot of these conferences, and I wanted to start the podcast. I couldn't find a space to get into this, but when I first started at Quicksort, gosh, I think it was like February of 2024. If you had asked me, or you've made a bet that Rich Montgomery's going to be on a podcast with Michael Francis and Joe Hoban to start the year in 2026, I think the odds would be like 100 to 1, like at least. But we do see each other at a lot of these
Yeah,
conferences. I wanted to ask you a question
sure.
around that. Are there any insights out there that you could share with the other guys, people that are attending these conferences, on how you'd like to be approached? Let's say HCP, CPES,
Sure.
any event. What's the best way
Yeah.
to connect with Rich Montgomery?
Yeah, just come with a big blue styrofoam hat, and then I can put that on, and that would, that's probably the best way to come. After that, whatever swag you have for your company work. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think the best thing is just come prepared, have your elevator speech ready, and don't jump out in front of me in a hallway and say, or tug on my shirt and tell me, hey, I need to talk to you. I mean, I will give you as much time as I can. I think I'm pretty gracious from that standpoint, but also have something that might be an interest to me. Don't come and talk to me about your telephone tree thing that you can put on my software. I don't care because I don't do that. So come to me with things that are important to me, important to our organization. Yeah, and just don't blow smoke. Tell me this is what I got. This is the pricing. We can talk about it. Hey, these are the folks that are using us right now as a reference. Those type things. So I think that's and you know chances are I probably know somebody that might be using their product. So like I said, don't blow smoke and tell me somebody else is using it and they may not be. So be upfront, be honest, and be prepared
Got it.
and bring swag. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, but believe we're going to get to this hat in just a minute. Don't worry. But Rich, I appreciate your answer for this reason. There's another who we're very fond of. Abby Rowe works on your
Mm-hmm.
team, right? She's been
Yep.
mentored by you, if I could say that. And when we asked her the same question, very similar response, right? have a point of view, know what you're talking about, don't blow smoke. But Rich, here's the thing that I think is really important for any of us to take away. Somebody like you has a vast network in this space. And if we can connect dots to people that you know and respect and know like, hey, that person, they do good work in that area. If they're doing something that we're doing together, that's
Yes.
way more valuable than anything, we could
Yeah.
probably tell you feature, function, benefit, problem solving wise.
Right.
If I
No,
get
good
anything,
point. Good
that's
point. Yeah. Connect the dots. Tell me, but then I also know some people are like, they're doing that? No way am I going to do it. But no, just kidding.
that's okay too.
Yes.
When we go ahead and post this and share this to the world, to the pharmacy world, we're gonna have to put that picture up with you in
Sure.
that, just so that
Go
they have
ahead.
a reference.
Have the print that Michael gave me at Christmas time is hanging on my wall in my house, and people have come in and asked me, "What is that?" And I tell them the story, and they just go, "Okay."
Hey, Rich, there's my goal for 2026. People, hey, you got resolutions or goals? I need that thing in the foyer. That's my goal.
That thing moved.
Yes.
Okay, another question for you, Rich, real quick.
Sure.
From, let's say, outreach to a Rich Montgomery, in your experience, and this is something that kind of reflects that good old days that I was referencing earlier. Not a lot of people do this these days, but maybe they do. I don't know. Cold call. Have you ever had an enjoyable cold call where you picked up the phone and it was like, ooh, I didn't mean to pick up this one, and somebody ended up saying something of value and they got a meeting or
Yeah.
move things forward?
Yeah. Actually, true story. Back when we were putting in 2012, 2013, there was a company called Phax, Phacts, and I got a cold call from what was his name? Kevin. I could be wrong there. Anyway, got a call, picked it up, started talking to him. I was like, yeah, okay. And then he started talking about inventory management and all this other stuff. One thing led to another. We brought them in, and they were kind of the backbone. They eventually got bought out by BD, I think. Yeah, it's now the logistics, but the BD logistics product, the beginning company was Fax out of Louisiana. That was probably the most productive cold call ever for us anyway, because it helped us get started. And we were one of their first hospitals to use them. So yeah, gosh, I can remember that guy's name. But anyway, yeah, that was a call. Usually, depending on what's going on, sometimes I just goof with them too. Like people will call me, can I help you with your parking lot paving needs? I go, well, okay. How many square feet? What's it going to cost? And then finally it's like, yeah, I don't think I'm interested. So I get more cold call emails, I think, than I do phone calls. But yeah, it's, depends what they're, sometimes, you might find a diamond in the rough, but yeah.
Hey,
But
if
they
you're
got
not,
to come strong, tell me what it is, tell me how it's, and we'll go from there.
yeah, if you're not dialing, you won't know if you find the diamond in the rough.
That's right.
There's a lot of rejection on the other end of that line, though, sometimes, but that's
Yep.
that's part of it. All right, Rich, we're coming not to the end of this, but this is where Joe and I like to ask a couple of rapid fire questions. More things that we've learned
Okay.
about you and the chance to get to know you. So, first off, you are the second person we've had on the other guys that is a huge bourbon fan. Alluded to it in the pre-show here. HCP's in Louisville, and we may not see you at the Reverse Expo. You may be taking the tours and enjoying the city. But what is your favorite, two-part question, favorite bourbon, and what's more of your your go-to bourbon? What's a daily bourbon, and then what's your favorite one?
If I'm doing a Manhattan or an old fashioned, I use Old Granddad Bonded. And people go, I had a guy at a Marriott in Baltimore. I asked if they had Old Granddad Bonded, and he said, nah, you got to go to the VA to get that, or the VFW to get that. I said, as far as like straight up, what do I like? A Buffalo Trace is right up there. Old Forester's right up. I don't know if I have like a go-to. Part of it's kind of the hunt too. Still Austin is really good. I don't know. I've been trying all the Penelopes lately. So yeah, I just kind of mix and match. I don't know but like I said, if I'm mixing, it's either Sazerac Rye or Old Granddad Bonded.
Have you been to that Sazerac spot in New Orleans?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool spot, I hear.
Yes. And the best tasting tour was in London. Buffalo Trace actually has a store similar to the Sazerac, same company actually, to the Sazerac in New Orleans, and they walk you through the whole Buffalo Trace, and at the very end they make you an old fashioned that is as good an old fashioned as I've ever had anywhere. So if you're in London, go to the Buffalo Trace store.
Good advice.
Love it. Switching gears here, and this could be too soon to be asking you this, Rich, but what are your thoughts on the Mike Tomlin stepping down as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach after 19 seasons?
I think the only way it'll happen is if he's ready to step down. I don't think the Rooneys will do it. There may be some changes coming in his staff, but I don't think he won't. I don't think he'll be let go. I think it'll be his choice.
Well, breaking news, Rich, Montgomery. Mike Tomlin stepped down about, I want to say, an hour or two ago.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I guess. Yeah. I think it's time. After last night, I think it's just, yeah. Now the big question is, who takes his place?
There's some good coaches out there right now.
Yeah. Do you go for a coordinator that's unproven, or do you talk to Mr. Harbaugh and see if he wants to? Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Well, the one thing about that family, they do not get it wrong. I think it's the way they treat coaches and keep coaches and keep the consistency. I think Joe has a comment about that possibly. I think is pretty remarkable in professional sports.
Yeah.
Similar to you being at AdventHealth for 34 years, right?
Right.
You don't need constant change. Give us constantly.
There's something to be said for continuity, but then there's also, you got to know when it's time. So I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, they've been the most consistent team, 22 straight seasons with a winning record.
Yeah, but they're 3 and whatever in the playoffs, so they're probably Anyway, however you want to cut it, it's behind us now. The draft is in Pittsburgh this year. We'll get a couple good picks and be a new year next year.
Rich, I've got to ask you this.
Yes, sir.
I know, we're sports fans and being a sports fan, and as you kind of get older and fortunate enough to travel around, the United States, you start to realize and hear about and then see there are Steeler Nation bars everywhere around this country. And you find them in the most awkward spots, cities that you wouldn't even imagine. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, again, two-part question. Is there a Steelers Nation bar in Orlando? How often or how many Sundays do you go down there and visit that place? Or secondly, what is the best Steeler bar you've ever been in?
There are here. They kind of come and go, so you got to kind of be careful. There was a Steeler bar. There's an area in Orlando called Church Street Station, which used in 25 years ago, it was kind of the heyday place to go. And there was a Steeler bar in there, and the guy, I don't know where he got them, but he brought in pierogies from Pittsburgh, and that was probably the best Steeler bar. I haven't been to any lately. I probably need to go out and look for some, but yeah, that was good. And they had the Permani-like sandwiches there, and so they brought in the whole taste of Pittsburgh, I guess, along with Iron City beer and all the other things. So that would probably be the place.
Okay.
Except it's not there anymore. It's not there anymore. But,
yeah. Don't go there. I was going to say if you're.
Don't go there because it closed. But yeah.
It won't be there. Favorite Pittsburgh Steeler or Pitt Panther of all time?
Favorite Pittsburgh Panther, probably Hugh Green, because he was there when I was there. That was when, Ricky Jackson and Marino and all those guys were around. But Hugh Green was in one of my classes, actually came to class, and so that was kind of cool. Favorite Steeler? It's a good question. Maybe, gosh, I don't know. Never really thought about that one. I would say Kenny Pickett because he was a former, but he didn't last too long in the Steelers.
We'll edit that
So,
out.
that was probably a loaded question there. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be a good question. I don't know. My favorite Steeler.
There's so many greats. It's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you had the Steel Curtain, Joe Green. I think right now in the current team, I'd say Cam Hayward, just because of all the stuff he does in the community, and he's pretty much stand-up guy.
Good one. Love it.
I thought you might go Antonio Brown, but no, bad joke. But hey, Rich, there might be some residents, some young pharmacy folks listening in.
Yeah.
Maybe. When they see your name, they probably will actually open up the link to watch this YouTube. But what would you say is one thing that, a young pharmacy leader, one skill or trait that they should develop or continue to develop as we move into 2026 here?
A couple of things, and I because we do take residents here occasionally, they come visit. Listen more than you talk is probably the first one. 2, don't pigeonhole yourself in a career before you've been out there, because I will tell you the number. I did a session. I went to University of Pittsburgh, and they had a alumni, and we had first year and second year students. And I said, so what do you want to do when you graduate? Oh, I want to be a clinical pharmacist, work in the ICU. It's okay. Have you ever done it? Well, no, but it sounds like something I want to do. And I said, well, just before you try a little bit of everything before you decide what you want to do. And if you don't like it, it's one thing good about pharmacy. There's a lot of opportunity, from industry all the way over to entrepreneurship if you want to own your own store or anything in between. So I would say don't A, listen more than you talk, and B, don't pigeonhole yourself into something until you've tried everything.
That's great advice, and if I could add, leave yourself enough time to play golf if you can, and work on your golf swing might be something.
That is true. Take videos and send them to people that know how to do it.
Where are we, Rich? I've heard you were hitting the range recently at some point. Where are we at in the process with Rich Montgomery's golf swing? How's it looking?
I hit the range on Saturday. I had a lesson at the PGA store on Sunday, getting the ball off the tee now and getting the turns in. Yeah, looking forward to you guys coming down in a little sunny weather, and we'll see what happens on the course.
But you don't have to ask us twice either. We'll be there. Rich, on that front, as you were so kind to send a nice note, a little video of you hitting the ball. One thing I'm appreciative of, and I know Joe is too, is you don't mind representing the 2% brand out in the wild. And we're grateful for it. And I don't know why you do it, but I'm happy that you do. You seem to love the hat, maybe the shirt, but what's the next thing that we should
don't have a shirt, boys. I need one.
We'll get you the shirt.
I will wear it if I have it. Yeah. It's different, and you guys have a great product. I don't know where we were in your customer ranking, but we were probably in the first handful anyway, right? I think. Yeah, and you guys are a good group of guys, and you do a nice job.
Well, I appreciate that. What's the next content, but swag, or what's the next clothing? We got hats, we got shirts. What would Rich like to see?
You got shoes, you got hats, you got shirts.
Like a belt or something.
What would be a good addition here to round out the outfit?
Maybe you might want to maybe step it up with a quick sort polo, or so people, because the 2%, people are like, my wife said, are you wearing a hat? People might think you're in a gang. I said, no, I think that's either 3 or 1. I can't remember which the number is. I said, but no, this is a fine company located in Charleston, South Carolina.
You are in a gang. You're in the 2% gang.
That's right. That's right.
This is a rough shot gang right here. Now, Rich, I got one final question, and then I got one thing to show you before we hop off.
Okay.
Now, I've been debating on whether you want to answer this question or I should let you even answer this question. But this was the most requested question we asked from the folks at AdventHealth.
Yes.
Okay? Everybody in Orlando wants to know when Rich Montgomery is going to retire. Don't answer that question. Don't give them any. Don't tell them. We'll leave them hanging on that front. Okay?
They'll know when I know.
So.
Yes.
Here's what I want to show you, Rich, for coming on.
Okay.
We're getting these. We'll get you a shirt. We're going to get you a nice shirt. Nice colored shirt, sit down to Rich Montgomery. Grateful to have you on. Let's see if I can do this correctly, Joe. Rich, in the spirit of having you on, and since you're the true cowboy, I don't know if you can see the screen. You are the original sheriff.
I can see it.
We've got some cards being made out of some nice card stock that will get framed, and you can put this right next to.
That's a classic. That is classic. I will put that right here. Who's the artist? That is like classic.
We cannot reveal our sources on how we create these things.
Okay, all right. I don't know if I have boots like that, but I'll take it. So yeah.
Well, you were that day. Joe said, Rich, I don't know if it had been like 100 to 1 odds that you'd ever spend 45 minutes talking to us on a forum like this. But
sure.
I don't even think the odds were 1,000 to 1 that you were going to put on that goofy 2% styrofoam cowboy hat and let us take a picture of it and then post that socially. It was one of the most engaging social posts we ever had, and you were a great sport to let us do it.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, and you spelled my name wrong, but that's all right. On your card, fix that.
Okay, we'll get it fixed.
So whoever made your card for you.
Okay.
I mean, it was just, if you can't have fun, then, and most pharmacists are, not most, some are, introverted, and, sometimes you just gotta kick back and roll the sleeves up and have a fun time. And I think a lot of folks in the room had fun with it. So yeah, I think it was good. Good
No,
times.
absolutely. As we kind of wrap up the show with Rich Montgomery spelled with an E, not an O, we'll get that fixed, no problem. We're grateful for you, Rich. I
Sure.
know I'm going to speak for Joe and I. I could speak for everybody at Quicksort, but we're grateful for the friendship that we get to have with you and the networking that we get to do with you and the
Yep.
hangouts and all that stuff. It is a joy you're a joy to be around. It's a lot of fun for us. If you're another guy and you're watching this and you want to get to know Rich Montgomery, you better learn your bourbons. You better come with some facts. Be ready to negotiate in a very stoic and powerful position, and know a little bit about some Pittsburgh sports. And I think you'll get
There we
along
go.
very well. So, again,
Got it.
Rich, thank you so much for this time. I know you're
Sure.
a busy man down there, but this was awesome.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rich.
Appreciate it.